All right. Welcome, everyone. Good evening. My name is Adam Hams. I'm the leader of the Houston Azure User Group. A warm welcome, along with Kim. Where's she gone? Kim stepped out. She is my co-lead. She can say hello in a little bit. So a couple of noobs. So Keith's a noob. Alan's a noob. And some familiar faces. Ray's familiar. Seeing some familiar fakes, and I don't see who we have online yet. Take a look in a minute. For the new folks, the purpose of what we are all about is community. This is a place to come and learn from the speakers, right? So this is Azure focused. We cover all kinds of topics, anything related to Azure specifically, learn from the speakers and from each other, because we get in Houston, it's a big town, a lot of folks, a lot of different industries, healthcare. You're from healthcare, right? Keith, what industry you typically? State and local government? Real estate. Okay. Yeah. So the two commonest ones are oil and gas and healthcare here in Houston. We've got a lot of folks with those two areas, working in those two areas. So but it's good to learn from folks in other industries, talk to others, and understand, because it's the same technology, but it's different business problems being used to solve it, right? So here is the place to learn from each other, to network, and it's not a place to be sold to. So it's not a sales pitch. Don't give one, and don't expect to receive one, and keep it interactive, right? So those folks online, you can unmute and ask questions. That's welcome. You step up and ask questions, because that's one of the reasons we're all here in person, right? It's not so you can sit and watch something in, just endlessly online, and that's plenty of no shortage of options on that. But here in person, it's an opportunity for a chit chat, engagement, to learn, to chat, and to speak. So that is encouraged. That's why we're here. That's why we do it in person. During COVID, we briefly did it a little while ago. We had to really is not come in here at all, and that wasn't much fun, and it wasn't as engaging, and it's a lot more fun in person. So that's why we do it in person. Also record it on the YouTube channel, and those of you here in the room, the room is mic'd. So no quiet conversations at the back, because everyone online can hear you and it's being recorded. So step out if you want to chit chat. All right. With that, so we want to thank NetApp, who are speaking today, but also who are providing our food for those of us in person. Thank you, NetApp, for feeding us, because we like that and we need that. So thank you. And that, let me hand over to our speaker, Edmund. You want to speak? You probably don't need the mic. I like using the mic, but we can. Yeah, we're good.
Everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Take it away.
Yeah, I mean, Cam, did you want to say a few words? I mean, you stepped out. I did introduce you,
That's okay.
but you weren't here.
Well, thank you, NetApp, for sponsoring one of the co-hosts, and just so blessed to be part of the community. I work for Microsoft, and Adam never left Microsoft really in my brain.
17 years at Microsoft.
Yeah, right.
So it's in my blood.
Right. So all NetApp colleagues here I work every day with. So we ascended to learn from them, the best in class storage. So let's hear what they had to say. But thank you, Edmund, to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Microsoft, for having us at the MTC to kind of speak with y'all. So my name is Edmund Vahidi. I'm part of our solution engineering group. I primarily help with our global customers in their strategies and help them solve problems. And my colleague here, Scott Kovacs, he's part of our customer success management team for Azure. So together, we're going to kind of tag team here while I talk through things. Scott will jump on the keyboard here and help us out with some demoing. But just a quick show of hands. Does anybody here know anything about NetApp? Does anybody here not even know what NetApp does?
No, that's a good answer. That's good. In the right place.
So NetApp is an intelligent data infrastructure company. Oh, we have one more.
Hello, welcome. Yep. All good. Welcome. Come up front. So yeah, there you go. Connie.
Yeah.
Welcome, Connie. We just got some.
So we are the intelligent data infrastructure company that helps our customers solve business problems by using intelligent solutions and essentially services that helps them solve their business problems. So data management is what we do. And going to kind of throw some slides up just to kind of help the conversation here, but we're definitely not doing slideware today. So let me go ahead and
Still the share. I'll stop sharing.
Yep.
And go. Welcome up.
So once again, for those of you joining us, my name's Scott Kovacs with NetApp. And we're talking to you all today about what it means to be an intelligent data infrastructure company partnered with Microsoft. I mean, essentially, that's why we're here at the Microsoft office, right? And to be honest, kind of cutting to the chase, Microsoft is a great partner of ours, and we try to be a great partner with Microsoft. Together, we're trying to help customers solve problems, and obviously, the cloud is the focus here, but it goes beyond that for us. So just a little quick history on NetApp. A little late response here. So NetApp was started in 1992. So we're not a new startup. We're not a company that just popped up in the cloud era. We've been around for a long time. 1995, we went public. So that's when NetApp actually started growing and accelerating. And what we started with back in 92 was we brought NAS to the market. We said, hey, let's have network attached storage and provide unified storage to our customers to be able to consume it instead of sticking a bunch of hard drives with SCSI to a server, right? How do we provide ease of use of data and storage in that manner? So fast forward, and like back in 2020 or 2002, we said, well, you have the NAS market that we're playing in, but then you have the traditional SAN market, and those are silos. How do we bridge that gap for our customers? So we saw a need for simplification, and we said, let's break down that silo and provide unified storage. So now you have a system that provides both SAN and NAS to customers. So I'm going to accelerate this because we're not going to spend all our time just going through the history here, but as the industry has changed over time, NetApp has continued that innovation to figure out what the challenges are that our customers were facing and how do we solve those. So when the cloud started becoming a thing with customers, there was a lot of companies that were saying, no, don't go to the cloud. Or they were saying, oh, we're your traditional box slinger, come to our cloud. But I mean, essentially, the cloud started with somebody saying, hey, come share our data center, right? Hey, come help us help you scale in mass. So what NetApp did is say, well, we could say, don't do the cloud, or we could go build our own cloud. But what we decided was the best way for us to serve our customers was figure out how to make cloud easier for our customer base. So what we did is we made hybrid cloud easier. And as that progressed through the years, we've advanced that to where we are today, where we've incorporated intelligence to help with that infrastructure to give observability and actionable items that can be done with AI within the data infrastructure. So that'll be the end of the history lesson there. And we're here in the Microsoft office. So what does NetApp bring to Azure? And this is just very high level simplification of what we do. But if I had to distill it to three things, one is how do we accelerate cloud adoption? Because what we've seen with our customers is they see the cloud as a vision. They want to utilize the cloud. But once they get into that motion of how do we get our data into the cloud, they run into obstacles. Sometimes we've seen one of my customers had a data set to move into the cloud, and they figured out it was going to take them 8 months to 16 months to actually get the data just moved into the cloud before they can even start consuming cloud resources. So what we do there is we figure out what are the challenges you're facing and how do we help accelerate that cloud adoption. So we've partnered with Azure to do that, and we'll kind of go through some of those things. But, and I've listed just a couple of tool sets there that can be used. We have something, if you're not familiar with it, it's the Azure NetApp Files migration assistant. So that can help you get into Azure NetApp Files quicker. And we'll dive into these. So if these terms don't make sense, don't worry, we'll get into them, but I'm just kind of hitting these high level here. We have SnapMirror, which if you're familiar with NetApp, that is one of our things that makes us unique. SnapMirror is our replication technology. It's been around early on with NetApp. And then the other thing is Cloud Sync. So Cloud Sync is a migration tool as well for specific instances. So once you get into Azure, then what we do is we help enhance that Azure experience of consuming data. So again, like I said, we're in our 33rd year of existence, right? We have a ton of IP. NetApp has iterated over the years on how to evolve data management. So all of that IP has gone into our partnership with Azure. So now you're able to consume that and leverage that when you're using data in Azure. And again, some examples of that are snapshots. So we won't go too deep into snapshots, but if I use any terms here that we don't drill into, just pull us aside afterwards if you want to get a little bit of more detail on that. But snapshots are very efficient ways of creating a snapshot of a volume or a data set without taking up additional space. So your initial snapshot takes 0 space because what it does is it uses metadata to repoint our snapshot pointers and our active data set pointers. It basically creates both of those in coexistence. And as data changes, the active data set will write that new block and change the pointer. The snapshot stays the same. So essentially, your snapshot only takes the delta of data changes over time. Really efficient. Whereas a lot of times, the snapshot technologies are, let's make a copy of the data and now you have a snapshot. So we do it a lot with a lot more efficiency and it's instantaneous. What that also does is it enables recovery to happen the same way. We just change pointers and those blocks are now active. So that technology has been implemented into the Azure space. Simplifying data consumption. So I mentioned we're a unified storage company. When you're talking about unified storage, you have SMB, CIFS, you have NFS. Traditionally, those are different. We're able to combine those together. And we also do that with S3 object as well. So it's all, and this will paint the picture of how it simplifies things, right? Because fast forward to AI, now what are people doing? Well, I have a data lake here. I have my POSIX file system here. I need to get that data into my AI workflow. Let me make a copy of it over here. You've doubled the cost. You've moved the data. Very inefficient. So what we've done is we've looked at those challenges and said, how do we solve these for our customers? Let's figure out how to bring solutions that help address those. We've also looked at that and said, okay, now you have the journey into the cloud. You figured out how to enhance the cloud services. Once that maturity occurs, then the next step is cloud optimization. Okay, I have this cost. I threw stuff in there into the junk drawer, and now I'm like having to organize it. How do I optimize my cost? That's where we come in and say, and this is something you can look at if you go and look at our enhancements over time. We're constantly iterating on how do we optimize the footprint and the cost, right? We provide cost optimization, not with just the tiers of storage that you can consume, but also how to put that storage in the best cost model within Azure so that you're optimizing your spend. And then on top of that, that helps drive up your sustainability goals. And we've removed the complexity of having to manage that data moving around. It's all automated and built into the system. So that's essentially a real high level overview of what we bring to Azure. So I'm going to stop right there. I talked a lot there. Is there any questions on what I've said or anything that doesn't make sense?
I have some questions. If the data is on-prem and whatever, do you move the data or do you simply have access to it and point to it so it looks like it's there?
We do all of it.
You can do either one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And we have multiple ways of doing all of that. So I'll give you a couple examples. If you want to move the data, you can replicate it. If you're coming from a NetApp to a NetApp, we can do a very efficient data transfer where you're only moving data that's had efficiencies applied to it, so dedupe, compression, compaction. So you're only moving those efficient blocks across the wire. That's one way to do it. If you're coming off of an estate that is not NetApp, we have tools like we talked about, like Cloud Sync, that can help move that data into Azure. If you have a slow pipe, we've even had customers where they've said, we need to figure out a way to get a temporary NetApp to put it there, move the data to that, then use the efficient replication to get the data into the cloud. Now that transfer, the transfer fees, the pipe needed, all of that shrinks because we've leveraged our efficient transfer instead of traditional transfer. And then we also have caching technologies where we point from either cloud to on-prem or on-prem to cloud, and we're only pulling the blocks that are needed to consume that data in that space. So we have all of that available. What we try to do is build a toolbox that has enough tools in it that can, fit all the different heads, right, of things that you're trying to work with. But yeah, does that answer your question?
It does, but I'm just wondering if there is a roadmap to the, from where you are to the final place of where you want to be, and how that is expressed in using NetApps.
Yeah, so again, it's customized to your business challenges that you're trying to solve. We don't have this is how we do it, you must do it this way. We have what problem are you trying to solve? And again, we'll go to that toolbox and here's the best way to do it. And we try to optimize that. So on the optimization, I'll give an example. We're the first company that came out with deduplication on primary storage. Like you had deduplication that if you had a backup system, that would deduplicate all day long and you could get efficiencies real well. We're the first company that said, hey, we're going to apply these technologies to our primary storage. Everybody came back and said, that is dumb. You're going to sell less storage. And we said, no, if we help our customers in the long run, it'll help us. Here we are today, and we just keep growing, right? And because it's when you help solve problems, the partnership grows, and that's the way we look at it. Yes.
Sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit. What is the most common problem you're solving? And this might be energy specific, but I'm just really interested in what the most common use case is and what the scale of that use case is in terms of size.
This might be a very generic answer, but it's putting the data in the right place, in the right form, and at the right cost model. That's what we're solving.
What type of data? If it's energy, is it seismic data? Is it interpretation data? Which is more common, I guess?
So in the energy space, the more common is the interpretation data.
So Petrel files and stuff like that.
Files. So Petrel is a very, very friendly environment. When you start talking about other HPC workloads, it depends on what it is. But yeah, essentially unstructured data, structured data, all of that.
A little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Now, you're moving the data hangs easily and stuff. What about the programs that are using that data?
So again, this is an easy answer to a very complex problem, right? But automation is my simple answer, right? We have ways to streamline what we do and be fit into whatever model you're using. So if you're using Ansible or Terraform to kind of build your environment, right? Then we plug into that and you're able to consume us very easily. So storage becomes just a afterthought or a side thing to the big project that you're doing. You don't have to have a whole spun up project on how do we address the storage. You look at how do we move this application and then it just comes along for the ride. Same thing if it's Kubernetes, right? If you want to use AKS, we'll get into that a little bit as well, but we automate all that as well. We streamline that. We help actually mitigate the storage management of that. So all of that is kind of, that's what we look at. We say, what is the friction here when you're dealing with data within applications or within cloud, and how do we address that? Does that make sense?
I'm just curious to know like how you guys are using AI these days in NetApp.
So how are we using it or how are we helping AI?
Answer both ways.
We use AI in everything from NetApp. So again, very generic answer, but we have something called Active IQ, which is our telemetry for every, like if you're if you have a NetApp system that's either a traditional system or a virtual system, it has call home features where it sends telemetry to NetApp to let us know if you've had issues, if you have event logs that are, or if you have an incident. It helps us do our incident response. So we proactively say, hey, you just had a panic on this system. Here's what we see. Here's what we need you to do. We're available. Let's get on the phone. So all of that is within that call home feature. And all of that is run with AI to help us figure out what to do and automate that. So the AI does the actions on it. It analyzes it. All of that uses AI. We also have tools that use AI to help you look at the data. And then we won't get into it too much today, but one of the things that I will say that sets NetApp apart from any other storage system that you'll see, we have built-in ransomware protection with AI. So it's not like, hey, you have data, let me create a backup, put it over here and run a scan on it and then tell you about ransomware. We actually look at the actions and blocks coming into our system within memory and find ransomware patterns. And we will instantly take a snapshot and alert you and say, hey, something's off. If it's no harm, no foul, snapshot, you can delete it. Otherwise, you have a recovery point exactly when that action happened. And it uses AI to provide that. Nobody else can do that.
Yeah. What's the tool called, or what's the suite of tools called to look at the data if I needed to get more information on it later?
As far as the ransomware?
No, as far as you said, you have tools to look at the data using AI.
Mm-hmm.
How would I get more information on that?
We'll cover that in here.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So we have it. I don't know if we'll dive into it, but Scott will kind of show us that. Yep. So, any other questions?
Are you gonna get into the migration stuff? I'm interested in difference between the file migration assistant and cloud sync.
Yep.
You gonna get into that?
We will get into some of that. I could talk through the rest of that.
I'm interested in the difference between those, because that's getting off of.
So I'll hit it real quick at a high level, so it answers your question.
Yeah.
So the Azure NetApp Files Migration Assistant is, and this is kind of getting ahead a little bit, but with Azure NetApp Files, SnapMirror is a closed system, meaning that it's within Azure NetApp Files. What the Azure NetApp Files Migration Assistant does is lets you do a on-prem to Azure NetApp Files SnapMirror without having to do other things.
So that assumes, so that's if you, oh no, you still have to have NetApp on premises for that.
Traditionally, it was Cloud Sync. So Cloud Sync connects to NFS, CIFS,
Whatever you've
object,
got.
whatever you've got, and it does a data copy into ANF,
Right.
and there's no charge for that. It actually works with anything to anything, but
Okay.
there's a charge for that.
Okay.
But when it's ANF, there's no charge for that. So that was the old way of doing it.
Okay.
So Cloud Sync is still there if you have a non-NetApp system to move to ANF.
Yep.
Azure NetApp Files Migration Assistant is a new thing that goes from any NetApp to ANF.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh,
Yeah, but let's keep going.
okay.
I'll let you get off with this
We
line.
might answer them, we might not, we'll see. And great segue to, so these are kind of the demos we're gonna hit real quick. We're gonna hit 3 key areas, NetApp Blue XP, which is our single pane of glass. A lot of times I say that's kind of an engine that you can use to do things. It is a GUI, but it also is consumable via REST API. So I have a customer that has a saying, not another GUI. Like they will not purchase GUIs to do anything because they do everything through Azure. They're very Azure centric, so they want to use Azure tools to perform all their pipeline stuff. So their CI/CD is reliant on Azure, ADO, all of that. So they will not consume another GUI, but with Blue XP, they consume that because they take the APIs and they inject them into their pipeline. So that's why I call it an engine. It is a single pane of glass GUI, but if you don't want to use the GUI, you just use the automation that it provides as the engine. So that's kind of why it's at the top, because it helps run a lot of the things that we're talking about. And we'll go through the visualization, which is kind of looking at what it looks like, the copy and sync, snap mirror simplification. So we'll go through those, and then we'll hit NetApp Cloud Volumes ONTAP, which is a NetApp third-party offering available through the marketplace. And that's our storage operating system, which is basically our IP that has all of these things built into it. You can consume that as a VM within Azure. So you spin up an AVM that, depending on your workload, we have specs on what you need to spin up. And there's all sorts of things that we can talk about on how that works. You're able to deploy that through Blue XP. You're able to snap mirror, use it for DR. You can do cloud migrations with it, like I was talking about earlier. And then you can also tier to blob with it. So I have a customer that has on-prem NetApp systems, and they want to be able to DR it into Azure. So what they do is they snap mirror into a CVO, and it immediately drops down into blob. So their costs are minimized within Azure for DR. And if they ever need it, then they just basically point to the data. The tiering to blob, there's no actions required from you to do any scans, do anything to the data. It just is either hot or cold, lives in the hot tier or lives in blob. And when you actually need to consume it, it repopulates back into the hot tier without you having to do anything. It's done at a block pointer level again. Remember the pointers that I was talking about? That's how we move the data around, and that's how when we know if it's being accessed, it's back into the hot tier. So that is a very efficient way to do DR for people that are still stepping into the cloud and still have on-prem systems. And then we'll get to the big meat of everything, which is the Azure NetApp Files. And I put there in parentheses, just so everybody's aware, that is a Microsoft Azure first-party service. So think of it as like an OEM on our IP, but is a Microsoft service. Microsoft APIs are used to interface with it, and it is dictated by Microsoft on the direction of it and what it's doing. And underneath the covers, it uses our IP and our storage operating system. And we'll get into the overview of that, how to set up different volumes, the different tiers of those we can talk about, cool access. So again, cost optimization and tiering is a big theme for us. We do it everywhere. We do that with Azure NetApp Files as well. And then just a quick, how do you size with volumes? And then we'll talk through some things like AVS integration and Copilot with our Neo connector. Those are a little harder to demo in this environment because you need to have multiple environments available to do that with, but we'll talk through that as well. So any questions on this?
Can the sizing and resizing be automatic?
There's ways to do that. Yeah. Now we have a lot of customers that their standard is relentless automation. So we're always working on how to make sure everything's automatable. Okay, so real quick, NetApp Blue XP. So we're
Question online, I think.
go ahead.
Raise his hand. Armando has a question.
Ah.
Go ahead, Armando. You can
Armando?
unmute, sir. Go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you for the chance. I have a question. How your solution combines with the Azure replication solution inter-regions or intra-regions, or the replication between different countries, the replication between different countries?
So we'll get into that. Armando, it depends on which one we're talking about. If you're talking about CVO, you can set up pairs and replicate within, whether it's within regions or within geos. CVO also has CRS that can be deployed underneath it. So the Azure built-in zone redundant storage can be leveraged for zone redundancy when you're talking about a single Azure zone. But then when you're talking about ANF, we have cross-zone replication and cross-region replication, and there's you know, they're always looking to add features to that as well. And
Thank
that's-
you.
No problem. Hopefully that answered your question. Is there any more, Ann?
No?
So I'm not going to go through all of the different pillars and tenets of Blue XP, but if you look at kind of what we address with Blue XP, we're doing the storage management of it, the monitoring, the health checks, the protection of the data, the governance around the data, and the mobility. And that'll make a lot more sense once we actually demo it. But Blue XP doesn't care about where the NetApp is. It could be on-prem, it could be in the cloud. Blue XP sees it, shows it to you, and helps you simplify that. So that, once again, these are kind of the things we're going to hit, but I'm going to stop sharing. And Scott's going to bring up the visualization of Blue XP so we can see what it looks like.
Okay. Thank you, Edmund. Appreciate that. Everybody hear me okay? Right. So as Edmund had said, Blue XP is kind of our engine for being able to work with parts and pieces of your Azure cloud as it pertains to NetApp storage. Not only in the cloud, but also your on-prem systems as well. So again, engine, we've got the GUI here, which we also have the ability to facilitate most of the actions in here with APIs through your typical REST API interface. So just kind of starting across the top here, I'll go across the top, then we'll go down the side. Just got some different organizational pieces when you set up your accounts and everything. We've got your organization for your company when you set up your initial XP accounts. We can break those down into sub-projects or different workspaces from within that. And then you've got multiple connectors for different, might be different regions within Azure, or different business units within Azure, your different business units that you're operating in Azure. We've got some just, communication, alerting, and develop in the right-hand corner there, just some options for Blue XP during the setup, and then some help and that sort of thing. The view that we're looking at right now is what we call the canvas. Got my working environments view, which is what I'm looking at right now, or my estate, and that kind of looks at everything that you have pulled into Blue XP and that you're managing through Blue XP in one holistic view. Then really the meat of it is over here on the left-hand side with all the different services that are available to access through within Blue XP. So favorites we're looking at right now, but the canvas is where we're going to see the two working environments that I have set up. So I've got two different Volumes ONTAP systems that I've deployed through. Actually, I used the API to deploy these. Later in the demo, we'll walk through actually creating one manually. But another example of being able to use automation API just to, instead of pointing and clicking through a GUI, sending it through my API client to the Blue XP connector here. Other services we've got monitoring. We can take a look at alerts from the different services that are being used within Blue XP. Health Blade, we've got software updates. We're tracking, looking at not only on-prem systems, but the CBO systems, just high-level communications, what's going on. So the digital advisor was what Edmund was talking about earlier. It pulls up your Active IQ. So if you're familiar with ONTAP at all, pulling auto supports that are coming from your systems, and you can see it all through digital advisor. I would click into it, but for some reason I can't get it to not show proprietary customer information that I normally look at. So I don't want to show you that. and get in trouble. We'll go right down into protection. And so I think Evan touched on it a little bit. Back to recovery. So we're going to jump right into that node, and I'll just show you that quick. Just multiple different services, primarily 3-to-1 backup system for your on-prem or your cloud volumes ONTAP systems, like local snapshots, replicating that to another system, whether that's an on-prem system to CVO in the cloud. And then lastly, off into our third location of our blob containers in Azure. It's our last third copy in the cloud there. So we also have that available for VMware and a preview service right now, as well as Microsoft SQL Server. And then some additional options that are coming soon, Kubernetes, equity, API.
Not ANF.
Not ANF, right? So the backup within ANF would be another first-party service within Microsoft.
So it's through Azure portal.
So what Blue XP isn't for managing ANF, or is it?
You can.
All right.
It's not as robust as the actual portal.
Okay.
But there are ways that you can do it. If you're looking for a way to simplify, maybe for a smaller audience, an ANF environment into Blue XP.
So at least we've seen customers pull in ANF for visualization, right?
Mhm.
Whereas when it comes to actual tasks, then using the Azure portal, because it essentially uses Azure APIs anyway, so you're using that piece of it.
Application was another piece that Evan talked about quite frequently. If you're familiar with ONTAP SnapMirror, it's our proprietary replication technology, which is block-based. That this is a GUI way to manage that, both not only from an on-prem into the cloud, between on-prem systems, or between two cloud systems, cloud volumes ONTAP systems. We'll demo that a little bit later as well. And we also have the ransomware protection, which I mentioned as well. And this is a way, just another way we can manage that. Here we pull the work environments in. We've got dashboards set up, scan the system, start to scan the volumes, see the status of it, see any alerts, restorations that might be going on, and just be able to kind of monitor that from speed for both on-prem systems as well as cloud volumes ONTAP. That's under governance, governance solution with what we call XP classification. And what we use that for is so it's really, it was a standalone tool that we pointed to a lot of different, had the ability to point to a lot of different sources. It was a paid for service. They've kind of collapsed that down into just NetApp for migration tool. So you've got some unstructured data that you're using, and you want to move it from A to B. Maybe it's been there for a while. You're thinking that you want to archive that, but you're not quite sure of what everything is in there. Point classification to it. It'll tell you whether you've got data with PII in there, other sorts of sensitive data. Use it for reports, the different types of classification, who has access to it, if it's open to the public, across your environment, permissions and that sort of thing. You can use it to search through it, find somebody's secret stash of MP3s that are out there that's sitting on a server somewhere. You don't want to move that, just put that in the Bitbucket.
So the earlier question around data visibility, so data classification is what we use.
How does this work with like a peer review or something like that? How does Microsoft Purview, is there any overlap there?
It does similar things. As far as, I'm not sure how much, where all the overlap is, but it does similar functionality.
I know we have customers that have both overlapping just because we've de-dollarized it. We say I'm asking this question as a NetApp employee, so I'm kind of being a little bit of a jerk here. We do have customers just because it's free now that just run both. In the past, we didn't have it as we were in competition a little bit, like the different features that we have. But now we can use this literally to classify or clean up any kind of data. And it's really nice because a lot of the times we're working with customers, we'll move a lot of workloads from on-prem into Azure, and then they realize that just taking everything you had on-prem, moving into the cloud and doing it the exact same way is really not cost effective and really friendly to any kind of happy quality of life. So I just bring that up because it's one of the things that, every company is like, oh yeah, this is the premium deluxe version. It's $9.99 more extra. It's so affordable. We're now doing this instead of selling this as a solution, we're doing it for free. So anybody can play around with it, use it to find data, files, like you said, PII.
There's always more than one way to do things, so.
Exactly. Multiple ways. It's good to have. That'd be great. Turn up phrase. There's a question in the front.
With like all your sort of AI processes, I was wondering like how much visibility you would have as a user to see like why your ML model is making like the decisions to like alert or not.
So as far as the actual model itself, we would be on the data side of it. So we would provide the data to your model. But as far as the actual stack and running your model, other tool sets would be used for that. That makes sense.
And then I think lastly, probably just to round out one of the things that we'll cover is the copy and sync tool service. And again, this is any copying of data from regular Windows SMB volume to ONTAP or in between the SMB volumes. It is, as mentioned, as mentioned, it's free to use to do any provided to NetApp.
This is Cloud Sync.
This is Cloud Sync.
Okay.
Copy and sync is what they're calling it now, but yeah, you know it as Cloud Sync before it's sync.
I like to change that. I didn't. It was just on this slide. I'm learning. I hadn't seen it.
Good. Yeah, that does facilitate moving data from different clouds into Azure. File. Sure. And then lastly, tiering. Cloud tiering is technology that we have. Probably yeah. Cloud tiering is kind of it's using the same technology, and is a block-based tiering technology that we're able to move data from a ONTAP system, Volumes ONTAP or an on-prem system, up into Azure Cloud Storage for cost savings. So if you're tiering from an on-prem NetApp array, then you would be using the cloud tiering service that's actually a paid-for service, licensed service. It comes built in as part of a feature set with Volumes ONTAP.
Essentially, you're able to manage that through BlueXP, except Scott's keeps entering.
Yeah, so normally I would have an on-prem system that would have imported into the BlueXP canvas, and then you'd be able to facilitate creating the relationship to your cloud. Yeah. It's something as simple. If it, pretending this is the CBO systems here, we're on-prem one. This is as simple as dragging, dropping, and then you've got your options. It would show up in one of these options here. It's not it's not an option because it's part of CVO. These are CVO systems that we're looking at right now. So it comes built in as a feature set of CVO. And as you're configuring it, you're telling it, yes, I want to enable tiering, whether I want to use a hot tier for blob or a cold tier for blob. And then when you create your volumes, you would find the tiering policies for those, how you want to tier.
So real, go ahead.
I was going, what is CVO? You mentioned that.
So CVO is Cloud Volumes ONTAP. It is the third-party offering within the marketplace, which is essentially a virtualized version of our storage operating system that kind of runs on-prem.
Okay. It's ONTAP.
It's ONTAP.
Okay.
Just like ANF, but it's there. So with CVO, you have to manage it just like a on-prem system. ANF is a service, so that it's different tools for different requirements. But obviously, ANF is when you're running a workload, when you're needing most things, ANF can address that. The other thing I would point out, if you want to pull the cloud state from each other. So if you have a ton of systems, they'll all be represented here, and you can do these quick tasks by just dragging and dropping like this. One that I wanted to point out that was kind of on the list is volume caching. So if you need to do any kind of caching, if you have a gold copy in Azure and you have a site somewhere else, or if you have two different Azure sites where you want to keep the gold copy in one site and have work sharing done at a different site, different region, different geo, you can use that volume caching and it'll create what's called a flex cache. It's our caching technology, and it allows you to basically pull the data on read to use that file, that data set in both locations, just like they're sitting in the same location. So it allows us to serve data from a singular location to multiple areas using that technology. And that's an ONTAP feature, so it can be used within ONTAP systems. So we have customers that do this from, Azure to on-prem, from on-prem to Azure, from Azure to Azure. So it's very robust.
So could you clarify the difference between Cloud Volumes ONTAP and Azure NetApp Files?
First and foremost, Cloud Volumes ONTAP is a third-party offering to the marketplace where you have to create the VM, deploy the OS on there, deploy Cloud Volumes ONTAP on there.
All right.
And then you essentially have a NetApp filer. So you have to manage it, do all the things that you would do to run the system.
So the storage is from the disks or the VM in that case?
Yes, so that's where like the ZRS, LRS come into play.
I see. So mount your disk, Azure disks to the VM in the usual way.
Yep.
And then CVO just magically makes it into a storage set.
Yeah, so you have to, it's basically like a PaaS, right?
Right.
So you're running that yourself, you're having to manage it, monitor it, do all the stuff to it. So all the operational,
Scale it.
all the operational costs are there.
Got it.
ANF, Azure NetApp Files, is a Microsoft first-party service. So it's a service, and you basically have a couple of things you answer, and off you go. You're basically able to use it. It integrates into a lot of Azure services, and it provides much more robust performance profiles. And there's other characteristics within it for cost optimization as well. So again, it's what are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to basically run your own infrastructure, or are you trying to consume a Microsoft service?
Okay. And are the features the same? Is it the same thing, but just as a automated service?
So generally with a system that you're managing yourself, you have more knobs to turn.
Okay.
ANF follows it's more simplified, right?
Okay.
Because we don't want it to get too complex. We want it to be consumed as a service.
Right.
Obviously, Microsoft's running that through Microsoft, the Azure portal and the API. So there's boundaries around it.
Okay, that makes sense. And your Blue XP is mostly for Cloud Volumes ONTAP?
On-prem systems, Cloud Volumes ONTAP. And like we said, ANF can be in here
You mentioned
for
that.
visualization.
Okay.
Some tasks within ANF are better run through Azure.
But for customers who have only got ANF, they don't have any on-prem, or they don't, for whatever reason, want CVO, they've just got ANF,
would they still find value in Blue XP?
Yeah, because it shows you all your ANF systems and how they're, because once you, do you have anything to replicate?
Do an ANF system?
Yeah, well, from CVO to CVO.
I've got.
Essentially, it'll show you basically the flow of data
Okay.
from system to system.
ANF to ANF?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Edmund, real quick question. Do I need to be a NetApp customer to benefit from leveraging Azure NetApp Files or CVO?
No, maybe.
Okay.
I mean, if you're not running a NetApp system, running Blue XP, you don't point to anything. But ANF is a Microsoft service. So you're an Azure customer, you can run ANF. And you can also spin up CVO out of the marketplace. So you don't have to be a pre-existing NetApp customer to do any of this. Actually, we have a lot of customers that have become customers within Azure and weren't previously customers. So yeah, it's not sure.
I have a question. The BlueX, is it like a dashboard that is just kind of like an app you have to install it on your,
It's actually a VM.
Yeah, so yeah, just to step back a little bit, Blue XP is actually, it's a virtual machine that is deployed from the SaaS that you were just looking at. So that's the SaaS piece. And it interacts with the virtual machine that's deployed. It's given an Azure role. So you define the permissions and what subscriptions it has access to. And then from there, then it can deploy Volumes ONTAP systems, create Azure Blob accounts, that sort of thing to be able to.
Okay, so it's deployed from the marketplace, the Blue XP, like CVO.
It can be deployed from the marketplace or from the Blue XP portal.
Okay, you're a separate portal.
Yeah, so that what we were
The
looking at.
single pane of glass is a portal that you can go to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a SaaS.
Okay.
thank you.
So you'll hear us refer to it as CVO, that's Cloud Volumes ONTAP. Just real quick, how does that work? Essentially, Cloud Volumes ONTAP, like any other ONTAP system, allows you to consume data in a volume with multiple different ways, multiple different protocols. So you can have block access, file access, and object access. So S3 is available on Volumes as well through Cloud Volumes ONTAP. And we have two flavors of that. We have the ability to create a S3 volume, or you can also have what we call file object duality. So you make a NAS bucket within that volume, and it's the data that you're consuming with POSIX is now consumable as an object. So that essentially covers our multi-protocol abilities to be able to access that data in a single volume and cost optimize any AI or ML workloads that you previously had to, like the data pipeline required you to move data into an environment for you to consume. So that streamlines that and optimizes it. CVO also has the ability to run dedupe, compression, compaction. So if you're not familiar with those technologies, dedupe is the ability to find deduplicated blocks, meaning two blocks are the same. So what we do is, again, our pointers will point to the same block and get rid of the duplicate block, driving down your actual footprint of the data. Your logical data, like if it's a 10 gig file, it's still a 10 gig file. On the back end, it might take up 8 gigs. So it optimizes your storage consumption. And then compression is most people have heard of that term. It's running that algorithm that can actually compress the data down. And then compaction is a cool little trick that we do, technology that we do. So we store data in 4K blocks. And what we're finding is if you had a block that wasn't taking up all 4K, you were then maybe wasting 3K in that block, and it was taking up 1K. And then you had 4 of those 1K blocks. You wasted essentially, 12K on those 4 blocks. So what we did is we compacted those. We take those 4 1K blocks and put them into one. So that is an additional data efficiency. So we use all of these to essentially try to optimize the storage footprint as much as possible. We also have snapshots that we talked about, but one thing we hadn't talked about, oh, yes.
Why is it a VM? Is it because you need to talk to iSCSI? Because everything except for iSCSI could be a container.
So right now it's a VM.
Okay,
I'll leave it at that.
okay.
Yes. Essentially, that's where it started, and containers are still maturing from the storage side of things.
Yeah, like I don't think you can talk to iSCSI. That's why I was wondering.
What do you mean?
Like, as in, if I want a container to control something iSCSI, there's no physical controller in the end of a container to do that, whereas I can do that on a VM.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, you can do iSCSI on this, yes.
Yeah, like as a VM. I'm
Right.
guessing there's not a way as a container just yet.
So essentially, we talked about snapshots already. What we do also that we haven't talked about yet is clones. So if you have a volume, let's say a database, and you want to run a UAT environment. Traditionally, what you did is you took your production environment, you copied it to a new environment, and that was UAT. With cloning, what we can do is leveraging our snapshot technology and our metadata and our pointers, we can say, spin up a new volume. And instead of it being a zero space consuming snapshot, it's now a new volume consuming zero space. And what that allows you to do is to run all sorts of tasks or whatever you need to that data. And then once you're done with it, just delete it. So it's a very, very efficient way to run new iterations on your data without actually causing changes to the active data set. Going back to your AI question with ML, you can have a data set that you're running different models on. And instead of having to have multiple copies to run those models, you can now take that and create a bunch of clones and run different models and see which one works. So that way you're not compromising your original data and you're not having to copy it every time. So that's how we fit into that, if that makes sense. I know earlier I was like, but yeah, so essentially we've talked about SnapMirror, the efficient replications. We talked about the flex cache and the caching options that's available in CVO. We also have secured multi-tenancy, so being able to stand up different environments that are fenced off without being able to touch each other. And then flexible administration, being able to have multi-admin verification or different types of security and authentication measures there. And then as Scott's environment kind of showed, you can just spin up a demo of this as well and kind of kick the tires on it. So let us know if you're wanting to look at that. But that's kind of this is a overview visualization of CVO and how it works. Now we'll kind of get into how to deploy one. We talked about the SnapMirror backup and then the tiering to Bob, but if you wanted to show how the CVO deploys real quick. We're not going to actually live deploy it because it takes a minute and it'll probably run us out of time, but.
Quick question, Evan, on that previous one. So you mentioned a VM, so an unlimited scale. I'm interested how you scale that out. You add VMs to this thing, or you can add disks, right?
So essentially you can scale it out by stacking it and you can scale.
Stacking, you mean multiple VMs? Is that what you mean?
Yep.
Okay, so you cluster them?
No, it just expands out.
It adds multiple VMs?
Yeah.
Okay, and just the storage to the, okay, that answers my question. Thank you. Sorry, as you were.
Oh, I guess I need to stop sharing.
Cool. And Amanda, go ahead. We missed your question. Go ahead, Amanda, if you want to jump in.
One question, your backup solution uses the native backup for every product, sorry, like Hyper-V, SQL Server, or blob storage, and your backup solution use the native backup solution of the different tools like Hyper-V, SQL Server, and blob storage, and reflect in your dashboard or console, or you have a native backup format or proprietary solution for backing up the different applications or virtual machines?
That's a great question, Armando. I wish we had more time today to kind of go over.
Yeah.
This is a very good subject to dive into, right? So essentially, at the core of when we say doing a backup, we have snapshots to do on volume snapshot, and then we have Snap Mirror to do a DR replicated copy. Now, on top of that, we have something called Snap Center, which is a tool that leverages application integration into the snapshots and the Snap Mirror to do things like consistent snapshots of VMware and SQL and different applications to be able to take a consistent snapshot, and then you're able to kick off a replication of that. So it's a little bit of a different mindset than your traditional like tape backup software of, you know, pulling the data out onto a different medium. But what we're doing is we're leveraging crash consistency with our snapshot technology and our replication technology to provide that. Does that make sense? And we
Yes,
didn't really
thank
get
you.
into that, but that's Snap Center. Yes, ma'am.
So you said the consistency of the snapshot, does it mean that if I have a SQL Server database that run on disk, should I be backing up database transactionally? And if you were to restore it, you say consistently, is that including the commit transaction?
Yeah, so what we do is we'll put it into hot backup mode, take a snapshot of the database. Our best practice would be to put the databases and the logs on different volumes. And so essentially represented as different drives, right? So what we'll do is we'll put it into hot backup mode, take a snapshot of the database volume, and then also take a snapshot of the logs. And we can actually trim the logs if you want us to or not. It's all figurable. And then essentially now you have a backup and you can replicate that offsite. That makes sense?
Well, the purpose, if I lose a drive, can I restore transaction consistency from what you said?
Yes. You can restore database point in time, roll forward, roll backward. Yeah, all that.
DBA, you guys not needed.
All right. You say that, so I came from a NetApp customer into NetApp, right? And we ran all of these technologies on our SQL servers, on our Exchange at the time, because, you know, 365 wasn't a thing back then. But also Oracle, SAP, all of that, all those environments ran these technologies. And what we actually did in the storage administration side of things is we set it up, and then we handed the tool, the GUI essentially, to our DBAs, and they ran their own world. They were in charge of doing whatever they wanted, and that actually was extremely helpful because going back to clones are built into that as well, right? So our DBAs would just spin up UAT environments left and right and just run what they needed to. They would do their upgrade testing, their whatever testing, their new user testing, and then they didn't even have to interface or call up a storage admin to say, I need to do this for a test environment. They controlled it because those tools were available to them. And we'll kind of talk about that a little bit later when it comes to Kubernetes as well.
Thank you.
There is a SQL Server User Group that meets here mostly online, but they do meet in person here at Microsoft. And SQL Saturday here in Houston is on November 8th. And then there's another session, day-long session of other stuff on November 7th that in support of that. So,
Thanks, Ray. Thank you for that.
So back looking at our LuxP canvas again. New CVS that I already have deployed. I mentioned that I deployed them through the LuxP API. You can see right. Yeah. Okay. And I'll show you where I got that data to be able to quickly do that if you don't do it the hard way and go through documentation and try to find what each parameter is. But pulling it through the cloud canvas here, it's a matter of point click. mentioned that BlueXP being the orchestration engine, it's just a matter of collecting some data, name, VNets, subnets where you want to deploy this, the type of cluster, single or HA, and then letting BlueXP that you've given the permissions that you spoke about from the role earlier, and let it do its thing. So first thing I did was select new add working environments, selected our Azure cloud. Then here it's just a matter of selecting whether it's a single node Cloud Volumes ONTAP system or a Cloud Volumes ONTAP HA system. Here, you know, the two that I have deployed already were both HA systems. One was a single availability zone, and we have the option as well to deploy that across multiple availability zones. Choose the zones if that region has availability, and deploy those systems. Zone redundant storage. It's an option to give this a name. Add tags if we needed to. Here, we have an option to pre-deploy or enable the cloud backup service, backup cloud. Or data center compliance is what we talked about earlier. We want this system to be maybe a destination from an on-prem system or maybe even another CBO system, and deploy cloud data sets as well, so that you can scan the data, their classification reports and whatnot.
Yeah, so back up to cloud, that is different than when I was saying like snap mirror or go from CBO to CBO. This is an actual backing up to a service that is a SaaS backup that uses Blob.
So this is not blob storage in my Azure subscription. It's,
This is a service
Okay.
that backs up, yeah.
okay, that happens to be backed by Azure Blob. I guess we
Blob
don't.
is in your tenant though, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So it's not, it doesn't go into like NetApp's tenant.
That
It
was
goes
my
into
question.
Your tenant.
Okay,
Yes.
that is my question. Okay, okay.
Yeah, and you have the option, you know, you can let it create a bucket for you. You already have a bucket. Got.
Right, okay. Zone 2. That's already configured. Subnet. We've got connectivity between our connector and then we can create a new default, create a new resource group. You can generate security groups again. If you've got specific security requirements, you can use pre-existing security groups to assign to those. Just select, you know, one. So not security groups. Use to be. Our charging method. So we've got multiple different, a couple different licenses here. If you're just looking to start playing with one, you can sign up for a BlueXP account, set up a connector, and then deploy a CBO system with the freemium. No charge, except for the Azure infrastructure costs, and whatnot. No licensing fees, and you can store up to 500 gig of data in there. So you mentioned a BlueXP account. Okay, so this is in addition to the Azure bill.
Yeah, because you're going to the BlueXP like SaaS
Yeah,
And
I see.
create
And there's a charge for that. I see.
No, there's no charge.
to Blue XP.
You just have to have an account to log in and administer your.
Okay, but if you pick anything other than freemium, then there's gonna be a charge
Yes,
for the,
yeah,
on the SaaS service in addition to Azure.
yes,
Okay.
yes. So the professional essential are Cloud Volumes ONTAP license
Okay,
tiers.
all right. Second, an additional bill, that's what I'm trying to get to. Instead of in addition to.
Which
Correct.
can be consumed multiple ways, including through the marketplace.
Okay.
One we got some canned configurations that you can choose from. You also have the option to.
Pause over one of those, please.
Sure, yeah.
One of the high, yeah.
So it specifies, the the license that you've chosen, disk type that it's going to use, the initial disk size, as well as the VM size. And
Well, the highest performance one, could we have a little? I'm just thing. Okay, same E series, the bigger one.
you're not locked into that VM size. So
So you can pick a different family if you want.
you can, yeah, so if we come up here and we do change configuration,
So if I were reserved instance of my VM that I like,
there are certain virtual machine types or SKUs that are supported.
okay, so it has to be one of those. All right.
So it has to be. one
In
of
fact,
those.
that it's going to be in this list presumably.
Exactly.
Could
And
you
you
pop
can
it up?
also,
Drop down list.
Yep.
There we go. Okay.
Yes,
E series.
this will also,
And
this
some
will also
else.
change based on the version of ONTAP that you use.
Right.
I was picking 9.17.1, which is NRC.
Okay.
If you want to match that to one VR on-prem system, or you Lines ONTAP systems, and you want to keep them all in the same family, change. Another option, the disk type that we can deploy as the underlying disks that we're going to be attached to that virtual machine that we will write the ONTAP file system to.
The way to add multiple disks to this thing.
Yes, yes. And so when you initially do it, it will deploy the disks that it needs.
All right.
There's like 3 disks for each VM, so it's like an HA pair, two virtual machines. It has 3 disks for the operating system, some
2 data disks.
supporting space for writing core files and diagnostics and that sort of information. And then, as you'll see right after here, this is the storage that you're choosing. So when that's just built in, it makes that selection for you for the disks that the ONTAP system will use. These choices here are for the data, right? So if it's something, just a workload that's just purely archived, you're probably never going to touch it. You just need to throw it up there in the cloud and have it sit there in case you need to access it for regulatory purposes. You might want to choose, standard SSD, for example. And then just the disk size here, all that is what the first disk is that you're going to use to create that aggregate. Not to get into too far in the weeds, but just this is the aggregate is just a group of disks. And when you choose this disk, they all have to be the same size. So
It's your building block, basically.
I gotcha. Okay.
depending on how much you have to store, you're thinking you can have to store, you're gonna want to adjust the disk size.
I see. This is the first one and we're going to have up to whatever, 64, whatever the,
Yeah, you have 32 for standard 32 terabyte disks, then you can scale up to 12 disks.
12 disks. Okay.
So you're stacking others.
I see. Okay.
I have a question. How are you tracking each deploy? Are you versioning for every time that you deploy, right? How are you tracking it at the end? Like every time you have a different version for each one?
You typically, you're gonna settle on a version of ONTAP that you want to use typically, because they either have an on-prem system that they're trying to match or keep within a certain range of families so they can snap mirror to, or it's just a feature set. Different versions of ONTAP have different features that keep getting iterated. So you might have a fleet of 5 or 6 CBOs that are on the same version. You don't have to change them.
But on your canvas, you're able to look and see what version each one's on.
Thank you.
And here's just where we're enabling tiering, as I mentioned, part of the ONTAP license. Tiering to blob is part of the licensing.
Meaning no charge to tier, it's included.
You're enabling it by default. It's going to enable it. You can disable it if you want, but it comes enabled by default. And then here is where you're able to change the type of blob storage that you want to tier to. So if it's, again, something regulatory compliance, just sitting out there, it's going to sit there for years and years and years, and probably never touch it. You can choose cold storage. Go off on your way, but by default it goes to speed. So if it's a high performance application, you can choose a high write speed. We also have the ability to create the storage as write only, write one, read many, one storage, activator or leave that disabled. Create volumes. I'm just going to skip over that part. Your options to look at NFS or SIPs or my SCSI volume. End here, just gonna review our choices. Check box to being applications, resources, or if it's gonna end up buying Azure disks, like a virtual machine, or. And here is where I mentioned the API request. So systems I deploy was through an API, just to show that show API request. Gives you the JSON text here that you can copy. Put that in your JSON body to send through your API tool to the BlueXP connector, and it will just move off to the races, and it does it for you.
For infrastructure as code.
Sends all that information to your connector that's in your Azure tenant, and it starts rolling on through the deployment.
It'll take it a few minutes here to initialize, so that's why Scott was, it deployed the other two previously, so we can see them without having to sit here and watch it actually initialize all the disks and bring that online. So if you want to stop there. Okay, so that last tenant there that we were talking about, Azure NetApp Files. Essentially, there's a lot of benefits to Azure NetApp Files. One of the things that we've seen initially, Azure NetApp Files was leveraged whenever you had a high performance workload, something like SAP, something that needed a lot of performance. Over time, it's evolved. There's a lot of features that are being brought into Azure NetApp Files. But all of the things we talked about, like being able to do snapshots without additional storage, the ability to do restores quickly, the ability to replicate, the ability to do clones, all of those things are built into Azure NetApp Files. And I personally have a customer that's running a massive SAP environment on Azure NetApp Files. And one of the things that, goes kind of not really considered within that environment, and we kind of talked about this with databases, they have their production environment in the West Coast, they're replicating to the East Coast, and that's their DR environment, but their sandbox environment is also on the East Coast. So traditionally, what they would have to do is they would have to break replication to do things to the East Coast instances to be able to do testing and all of that. And that left them out of compliance because they didn't have disaster recovery continuously working when they did that. When leveraging Azure NetApp Files, they were able to clone and pull up in a different environment, and the replication and DR just continues without them having to do anything or be out of compliance. So there are a lot of little advantages that we take for granted that Azure NetApp Files helps provide and enhance our Azure experience. So real quick, I guess now Scott's going to flip over to the Azure portal and kind of show us how easy that is.
Make it a little bigger scope. There you go. That's better. Thank you.
A little easier to see.
That's better. Sorry about that. All right. Yep. So as we mentioned, Azure NetApp Files is a first-party Microsoft service, and so you've got your regular Azure portal view. We've got some basic tenets of Azure NetApp Files. You have, or the hierarchy, I should say, not tenant. You have an account first. Within that account, you would create storage pools, and we create volumes from within there. So what we're looking at right now is just the Azure NetApp Files service. We've got a number of different accounts that I've got set up, so I'll just go right in here to the South Central one. And similar to what you can see with any other Azure service, your different blades on the side here. Capacity pool that I've got set up here. And we've got, take a look at the actually we'll do create a view pool, see what the option that we have to create. So just simply give it a name. We've got a couple different service levels that you can choose from. We have standard, premium, and ultra, and then flexible. So if you choose one of the non-flexible ones, I guess, have a set throughput for each of the service levels. So standard would be lower, and premium is sorry, ultra is the high. Flexible. What flexible does is change the throughput of that volume based off of the amount of storage that you have provisioned. So typically, you might over provision with one of the static services to be able to achieve the throughput that you need. Sometimes, depending on what the performance that you need, you might need to, you would maybe need to over provision. Flexible service level gives you the ability to get the performance that you need without having to.
So as an example, for standard, you get 16 megabytes per second for 1 terabyte. So if you deploy 1 terabyte, you have 16. If you deploy 2, you got 32. So what traditionally, the way that works is if you needed something high performance, you might deploy a bunch of standard or pick an ultra. So you had to kind of construct your throughput and your storage to optimize it for your cost as well as the performance you needed. To Scott's point, now we have flexible available where the storage and the performance are independently scaled. So any flexible comes with 128 megabytes per second built into it. And you basically, if you go over that 128, you can add performance to the volume, or you can just keep that 128 if that's sufficient and just add storage as you need it. So it optimizes the cost because you're not linearly paying for storage and performance together. And if you only need one, you're paying for the other without the need for it, right? So that gives you that flexibility of deploying a cost optimized data storage infrastructure there.
And so I just chose the standard service level. You can vary the size of the capacity pool. It's not set in stone. You can change that as you go along. Minimums, there is a minimum size though, is 1 terabyte. So all terabyte. Full access is kind of that theory feature that we've spoken of, Volumes ONTAP. Extending that also to Azure NetApp Files. Here, whole blocks into Azure Blob Storage. That would just be, so that instead of being done at the volume level, like ONTAP, you actually set it at the capacity pool first, and that makes it available to any volume that QoS type is simply managing, you're allowing the service to manage the performance of that volume, or you want to set it manually yourself. Full access, and I have the ability to single or double encryption capacity.
Got a quick question. The encryptions, what kind of keys are we using here?
So we have the ability to use the built-in Microsoft managed keys, but we also have customer managed key option as well.
That's a great question. And I don't remember if it's preview or not, but you can have keys managed in a different tenant as well, if you needed to.
So right now, I don't see the ability for an input. Is that something that we can configure later?
An encryption box just above that one. Is that left there above capacity pools? Is that where you set that up?
We're talking about the encryption,
The key
the
type?
keys. That's done at a later stage.
Yeah. So we're just enabling.
We're just setting the parameters of the capacity pool.
Volumes is simply a matter of drilling into the capacity pool. You know, see the volumes available under the storage service blade. Size. So we have this option here for large volumes. We have the ability to create a larger volume based off of something we didn't touch on based on, but our flex technology. So what that basically does is takes multiple volumes and kind of stitches them together for one large namespace that you can grow over the terabyte.
Yeah, our basic container for data is a flex ball, and a flex group is that flex ball is a constituent in a larger pool of flex volumes. Yes.
What's the difference between this volume and the capacity pool?
So the capacity pool is the container where the volumes go in. It's just different containers within containers. This is your smallest unit of storing data. So this is where you would actually access and put the data. Capacity pool is a pool of those volumes in it. So you could have a one-to-one relationship if you needed to, but if you have, your home directories and your, project files or whatever, each of those is a different volume, there you'd create a different container.
Okay, just.
So 100 terabyte that you mentioned, is it a maximum capacity, or I'm just like curious?
So it is for a regular volume unless you click large volumes. Volumes and show that. Minimum for a large volume is a little over 50.
So volume is like like a partition in the same disk.
Thank you.
Yeah, my capacity pool is not big enough, so.
Oh, that's right.
So
Yeah, we forgot, we set the capacity pool at 1 terabyte.
So is volume is like similar to how you have volumes in your operating system, like like
Like a drive.
Like the disk, yeah, like the.
You can
drive.
even look at it as a share, like think of it as a share on your operating system. Yeah, so you create a folder and then you create a share out of that,
Oh,
and that's where you're putting stuff. Think of it like that.
okay, gotcha.
So think of the capacity pool as like the drive that the share is on, or the folder's on that the share is on.
Okay, gotcha.
Here you can see, so I enabled cool tiering, cool access on the capacity pool. So now I have the option to enable it here on the volume just by a simple check mark. And then I can decide some different parameters that are available to me and how I want that data to potentially tier to the blob storage. So default is 31 days. So that means it's gonna sit on that volume for 31 days. On the 32nd day, if those blocks are cold and have not been accessed, then they will start to tier up to the blob storage. You can set different retrieval policies, how you want that volume to retrieve. If it reads it, you can tell it to ignore it. You can have it on read. By default, it's going to initially read it from blob storage and then deliver the read. On subsequent ones, then it will pull that block back onto the hot tiers. Policy, so we've got two different policies. We have auto and snapshot only. Auto would be basically any data that will qualify based off of the previous settings here, or snapshot only, just cold blocks that are in the any snapshots that are there for the moment. Yeah, subnet that we have, export that to. Network feature sets, basic is an older one that was initially deployed with the service. Standard is really the one that you want to use for now. You can choose a availability zone. Here's, you're asking about the place where you can.
Yeah, this is where you put the encryption keys.
I don't have any customer managed keys set up, so that's why the option's not available right now, but I can choose Microsoft managed key. A little advanced section here gives me some additional options. I can hide the snapshot path, so any hosts that are mounting that would not be able to drill into the snapshot directory and play with snapshots and pulling files out. Sometimes that's something that you might want to do. Or I can go ahead and set a snapshot policy that I may have already created, which I did. So I'll just choose my snapshot policy.
So this would be something like take 4 hourlies, 3 dailies, 5 weeklies, and take those snapshots, and you can set times and stuff for hourlies and all that
Where are the snapshots stored? On the same.
on the same volume. Okay. Because again, we're using those pointers and the blocks. So if you take snapshots and nothing changes, no additional storage is needed.
Here we select the protocol that we want to use. We've got NFS, typical SMB. For Windows environments, where we've got dual protocol, where you can have both types of clients, NFS and or SMB sys client effects.
For energy, there's a lot of people that run Patrol with SMB and NFS using dual protocol very successfully, so.
Yeah, they're using NFS just out of interest,
Linux,
but Patrol doesn't run on Linux.
some people.
Like on a KVM inside of Linux or something, because Patrol literally doesn't run on Linux.
So they don't run Patrol itself.
Oh, they're storing like files on Linux servers or something like.
Well, they're using a Windows box with Linux authentication for NFS.
Okay, all right. I think I know which people are doing that.
Okay.
Not a very long list.
Yeah, so NFS 3 and 4.1 support, and then if we were using SMB. Three in SMB or 4 and 1 SMB. Just for speed, I'm just going to leave it back to the default for NFS. And Unix permissions you want to change on that. That if you needed to. if you were using an Azure VMware solution, it's going to be a volume for data store for an Azure VMware solution. And just simply a matter of a checkbox. So it's available and can be recognized as a data store for AVS. And enabling or setting your export policy.
Another one would be decision space. It's on.
Yeah.
Great.
People still use it.
For a little bit.
But let's say you've got this volume set up and you're using it and it begins to become apparent that it's not big enough. What happens? Does it notify you?
You can, yes, you set up notifications. We have, you want to talk about the,
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we've got a couple of tools that you can deploy in your tenant that are basically Azure logic apps. And you go through a script that sets it up. You give it thresholds on when you want to do orange, when you want it to grow for you, and that sort of thing.
So you could have it grow also.
Exactly. Yeah.
Good.
So do you have something like a elastic? Quickly elastic volume now?
yeah, there is a cooldown period for shrinking or going down in like tiers. You can go up in tiers, you can go down in tiers, but there's a cooldown period. Sizing wise, you can go up and down depending on if you've consumed the data. So if you deploy 10 terabytes and then you want to bring it down, but you're consuming 10 terabytes, you can't bring it down. You have to get, delete some data and then you bring it down to 8 consumed, then you can bring it down to 8, that kind of thing. But
What about
it's,
growing?
what's that?
Well,
Same with, yeah, you can grow and shrink and then from a service level, you can grow and shrink.
Well, like initially, if you allocated, say, 10 terabyte and you want to grow it to 20 without doing anything, then
You just change it to 20 and hit.
oh, so you have to actually go.
Manual or automatic?
No, I mean, that's what he was talking about, the
Either.
logic app.
Logic app.
Yeah. So you do it manually, you foresee the need, or you can have it where you've got the logic app set up and it's monitoring, looking at it and going, okay, you grow this volume.
Gotcha.
Logic app, okay, I see. Yeah.
This is taking this long because he's running it on his laptop.
It does do a bunch of things on the back end in Azure, so.
In
waiting
Azure.
For all those to fruition.
Like seismic industry uses like a lot of data. I mean, they capture a lot of data from their what do you call phones, in the sense geophones that they put it in a land and they capture all this seismic data from various places and then some device uploads that into somewhere. So this can be used to upload from various places and
Generally speaking, yes, you can use SnapMirror to move data with this, but it obviously we'd have to see exactly what,
some kind of REST API or,
as far as the replication.
yeah, no, I'm saying to send the data. Geophones.
In the actual phone itself.
Yeah, not actual, the smartphones, I'm saying geophones as in, usually what happens with seismic, they capture data from land. And they spread out all those geophones and they capture sound waves and all those.
They
waves.
normally have edge storage
Yeah.
right there
Yeah, right.
that collects it. And then I'm assuming you could easily
Probably,
mirror that
yeah,
edge storage.
So we would be the aggregation point, not taking it off the geophones. We'd be the aggregator.
Gotcha.
And then once it's placed on us, then we can, move.
Yeah, I see.
It wouldn't be the edge storage. It'd be the
No.
central.
So at that point, you're actually having to be on the phone. But we would be the edge storage. as
There's
part
no
of the
reason you couldn't, because like Western Chico used to use DDN storage for that exact thing. So there's absolutely no reason you couldn't,
Sure.
except for nobody's really doing seismic surveys anymore. But I mean, you could get rid of tape with this, right? Like,
Yes.
like there's no need with the snap technology, like I don't need a forklift to unload tape anymore.
Have those conversations.
Right, yeah. And they had a lot of tape, database back then. I don't know.
That stuff is still on tape.
Petabytes is still on tape, yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. It's a big problem out there.
But the only time that comes up is if it's needing to be resurveyed for a specific reason.
Yeah.
But otherwise it'll just stay on tape because that is a asset.
Correct, yeah.
We should have a quiz about what you've shown us for the last hour and 40 minutes.
You have that pedal that you can actually.
Yeah, I can just talk a little bit about.
Yeah, because we're nearing the end here, so I didn't realize we're going that long, so thank you for.
Oh, it wasn't deliberate.
No. Time flies when you're having fun, right?
Right. Ray's still here, so that means we're still on. Ray leaves. He has folded his laptop up though. That's concerning. Done. Look at that.
Now we've got-
All you had to do was quit looking at it and it's finished. See?
Amazing what refresh.
There's a rule that,
I'm saying there, isn't there?
What's the problem?
It's the watched pot.
Yeah.
It never boils.
So it's the mount path is an IP address. Can you have that as a CNAME?
yeah, so, yeah, so you can, so it's gonna be an IP address, but you would, you set up
You DNS
resolution.
to configure that to something else.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, so, and then you've got, so basic information here. Take a look at it. Probably the most important stuff that you're gonna want, once you do that, is your mount instructions. Go to your blade there, basically tells you what you need to know. This is based off of what type of volume it is, right? If it's a multi-protocol, you're gonna have instructions for both Windows and Linux. This is an NFS one, so how to configure your clients, look at your NFS tools on your Linux host. And then how to, and it'll even give you a command down here. You can just copy it and drop it into CLI on your Linux host. So,
Oh, Windows. Windows.
sorry.
Windows is RT.
Yeah, if this was a Windows volume, you would have the share essentially.
Yeah, I chose NFS just for, well, it's supposed to be for speed, but. Typically, it's a little bit longer for an SMB volume because you're joining the domain, right? So it's got to go out and my domain controller is not the fastest thing. So it's supposed to be a little bit faster to do NFS. But, so yes, this is where you would be able to get the mount commands. You could do things like modify your export policies here, add some additional rules to that. Create manual snapshots if we wanted to. Process them manually. Policy that I chose is already set up, so those are going to happen automatically.
That's how quick it is to create a snapshot. It probably takes longer for the API to call in and call back out and show the representation that it does to actually create the snapshot on the back end.
And then once you've got that snapshot created, you can do things like convert the volume, restore to a new volume,
That's the cloning piece that we're talking about. You can do that as a temporary or a permanent thing. So you can spin up a new volume based off of this volume. So instead of having to copy the data manually, you can just create a clone and then make that an actual permanent volume.
We also have the backup, ANF backup as well, so you can configure that not only to have your local snapshots, but actually that data off into.
So similar concept, backup service into Blob.
But this is not using Azure backup. This is using native blob.
It is using Blob service as the back end, but it's a little bit different from Azure backup.
Okay.
The volume, and we go to the metrics blade. Look at the different metrics that are available. We've got performance or
What do you have under replication? I mean, is that the geo replication?
So you can do zonal or geo.
so replication would be basically the snap mirror inside of Azure. So we're replicating that volume to either like things in zone or distribution.
We don't have a replication target. We didn't
Yeah,
go through that process, but you'd have that listed here and then you can.
yeah, you can pick one of both.
Yeah.
Resize the volume manually. We talked about the automatic way, but 75, 50. Happens non-disruptively, no disruption to the volume. So if you need to grow that as you're in production, no disturbance there.
Yeah. So kind of rounding this out, couple other things that we don't really have time to dive into in a demo fashion, but I wanted to point out. So we do have, is everybody familiar with AVS, Azure VMware Service? So AVS, ANF is a native data store that you can use to deploy your VMs in AVS. Both ANF and CVO can be used as external storage. So if you have a SQL server and you want to attach a drive to it, you can use CVO for that, or you can use NFS or SMB from ANF on a VM. That's external storage, but AVS can be the actual, or I mean, ANF can be the actual native data store leveraged with AVS. So if you actually do the calculations, it's very cost effective doing that instead of adding, you know, the native disks for AVS. So that's one thing. The other thing is Copilot with Neo. Anybody here familiar with Copilot? Little thing in Azure that's very.
Neo, no.
Okay, well, yeah, so the Copilot piece is what I was pulling there, but so Copilot is, you know, everybody's leveraging that now. That's my point, right? So Neo is our connector for ANF into Copilot so that your data that you have sitting on ANF, you can leverage Copilot against that data. So we can dive into that if you're interested, but
What does Neo stand for? NetApp,
Neo is just there, yeah.
NetApp,
That I don't know.
enterprise, something.
It stands for
I
anything.
don't know what it stands for, honestly.
Fair enough. All good. No problem.
I can ask the guy that made it,
It's fine.
but you asked the question that I hadn't asked yet. So that's essentially how the connector works. We can go a little bit deeper into this, but again, we'll just keep it at high level. But essentially, we have this. If you're interested, let us know. We can dive deep into it with the team that supports this. So that this is kind of my last slide here. We talked about a lot of things. There's some things that we didn't touch on, so I'm just gonna mention them here as honorable mentions. These are other things that we have in our Azure portfolio. We talked about ransomware protection and classification. We didn't actually have those as a showcase. NetApp Trident is our CSI for Kubernetes that allows you to essentially set up your standards for storage. So you deploy the CSI driver for Trident. You connect it to a NetApp data volume, and then you set your parameters around gold, bronze, silver, whatever. And then at that point, Kubernetes then just consumes the policies that you've set without having to manage the storage. And what that provides is the ability to do backups, to do things to storage that are normally very cumbersome within Kubernetes. So if you're running Kubernetes, if you're running AKS and you're looking to leverage advanced storage features and backups and other things, let us know. We can talk to you about Trident. Another thing that we have is InstaCluster, which is a service. So if you're running things that are open source, like Cassandra, Kafka, any of those, we have our InstaCluster team that does support for those open source technologies. We also have managed services around those. So essentially, you don't have to have a Cassandra or Kafka team to run those environments. We're able to run them for you in your environment or in our environment and provide them as a service. A lot of flexibility there, but a lot of people are looking at open source technologies. And that's what InstaCluster provides, is supportability, customization, and managed services around those in Azure. And then we didn't talk about our data infrastructure insights. As far as observability and visibility into your environment, DII is our advanced capabilities into that, to be able to look at the data and figure out advanced telemetry into what's in my cold storage, how am I consuming my ANF, how am I consuming my environment. That's what DII is. And then everything we talked about, we partner with Microsoft to make sure it's available through Marketplace. So I for one have a customer that's consuming everything we have through the Marketplace. So let us know if you're interested in doing that and set up those private offers for the things that are outside of the Azure native services.
Does it count against my?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
It burns it down. Okay. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. Any more questions before we let them go? Had a lot of good ones. Who learned something? Yeah, I learned something. That was great. Successful evening. Am I right? Yeah. Well, thanks again for the NetApp folks. That was great, actually. Next month we have Red Hat coming to talk to us. Please take some pizza, and any last questions, the guys will be around for a little bit. And Kim has something.
Yes, so next month theme is Halloween. Come dress up in your.
Oh, that's right. Halloween. Yeah. I've already got my outfit picked out. So it's going to be Halloween. We deliberately moved it to the end of the month, so it's closer to Halloween rather than the second Tuesday. So yeah. So that's right. Come join us for some fun. All right. Thanks, everyone. Hope to see you next month. Thank you all.